أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئنا سهلا اللهم انفعني بما علمتني وعلمني ما ينفعني وزدني علما آمين يا رب العالمين. Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر. Indeed, we have granted you, O Muhammad, al-Kawthar. Termed as abundance or multi-word kathra. It's not limited in any way. It's got like different meanings in this surah. So it has a reference to the blessings that the Holy Prophet will be given in his life in the future, and how like the blessings he'll be given in return for his patience with all his torment and all the hardship that he's facing. Al Kawthar is actually the very background of the surah is where for when the Quraysh were actually taunting him and mocking him and calling him cut off. So that will be covered in the last ayah. Moving on to the second, to explain it, to further explain it better, moving on to the second ayah, it says, so pray to your Lord and sacrifice. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. So what that is essentially means, at its essence, it just says to be, like maintain sabr and keep the worship of Allah, and uh, when once you're steadfast and when you're patient, Allah will eventually like basically uh, you know give him the abundance that was promised in this chapter. Uh, so what this surah actually what the surah does, it's actually similar to surah chapters 93 and 94, which is ad-duha al-inshirah. This surah exclusively concerns the prophet, helping restore him from a state of like humiliation and discourage, assuring him of happier prospects in his struggle. And basically, in it, Allah also threatens the enemies of the Prophet with destruction while directing the Prophet to a path of thanksgiving. As a Quraysh tribe, obviously, as we know, mocked the Holy Prophet. And this was particularly at the death of his offspring, referring to him as cut off or abdar, while Ayah 3, which is Inna shani aka huwal abtar, indeed your enemy is the one cut off. Uh, they are actually considered cut off, which is again capped from any sustenance. So they are the ones who are his enemies, and therefore they do not deserve Allah's mercy. So another thing that this surah does, and it's an important point here, is it gives an insight about Muhammad's peace be upon his life and the development of his mission during the first few years at Makkah. The Holy Prophet and the divine word he communicates have always been the targets of the Makkans' schemes and slanders. This surah also provides like a good illustration of Allah's true protection of His servant and the select group of people who believed in Him and followed the Prophet. Um, but in addition to that, Al Kawthar is a prime example of Allah directly assisting the believers in their battle, giving them strength and self control. As the surah, it just keeps telling or reminding of them to maintain sabr all throughout their hardships and difficulty that they're going through their trials. So that's really essential, and that really gives importance to the surah. And what the surah also sheds light on is how the Holy Prophet's mission evolved during his years at Makkah, the early years. The Makkans have always used plots and defamation against the Holy Prophet and the divine word he conveyed before. So um, it also these verses signify Allah's protection for His servants. So therefore it also increases your faith, increases faith and trust in the believer to just put their trust in Allah and just remain steadfast throughout any difficulties, as this life has many difficulties and it's a journey of trials and tribulations. And it was actually due to the early passing of his sons. The Prophet used to be generally referred to as a man without descendants. But this is when it got like really worse for him because um, he was in a state of severe depression, and you could describe it as almost in an unescapable level of depression because he was being taunted and mocked by the Quraysh to that degree. So when it comes to the significance and importance of this surah to us, the believers as a whole, um, it uh, this surah sort of spreads or sort of gives or puts forward the same message for us as the ummah. So because we have our own sort of difficulties that we have to go through in our lifetime, and we also have to remain steadfast, and we also have to keep our belief in Allah. And sometimes you may think of it as something that isn't that much of a big deal. When the trials come, then that's when that's when you get to feel it. So you have to keep your patience, sabr, which is emphasized in the Quran many times, and you have to pray to your Lord and sacrifice, as clearly mentioned in the ayahs, which basically it's also very self-explanatory as to what it actually means when it comes to our life. We go through many negative downs, and we have ups and downs, right? So yeah, there's that. And also this surah also puts the message forward that Islam frequently lays emphasis on the mentioning of Allah's name. It's just you have to keep your faith, and the ayah, so pray to your Lord and sacrifice to him. It assured the Prophet of his munificent gift. So what that does is it disproves what the calculators and conspirators say. Allah directs the Prophet to be completely and sincerely thankful for him for his bounty, and this really helps you or the Prophet to devote himself to him alone in worship and ritual slaughter, taking no heed whatsoever to all forms of polytheism and refusing to participate in the worship of polytheists, especially when they continue to proceed with all the mocking or pronounce any name other than that of Allah in their offerings, which they were trying to spread, and basically they threatened the Holy Prophet to give up his right. And this surah was a significant step in the Holy Prophet fighting against it. Other than that, this once again, the surah promotes faith and goodness, no matter what hardship you go through, which is really important. And yeah, that's it. So so just to conclude that I've said is that is how the surah actually helped the Holy Prophet throughout a difficult time in his life. We could also take this surah as a message for our lives and implement this surah and its teachings.
Shayan, if I add here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Fasalli," right? So praying is a great lesson for us here. Whenever Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in stress or in a distressful situation, he was praying salah. Okay, so we have to be steadfast on salah, on offering salah. This is one lesson for us from this surah. These days, if we just
Yes,
look around us, how many people you think are regular in Salah?
there are not that many. We are
Very few.
actually, facing sort of a downfall where people just don't pray.
Yes. And praying, again, praying mean regular prayers, right? Regular prayers, and then extra prayer, nawafil. Yani, there is no
Yeah,
compromise on 5 times a day, and this is extra prayer. So definitely, the one who is not praying 5 times, he will not, be motivated for extra prayer. So it's a great lesson for us that prayer is a connection to God that helps us, as you were saying, that we have to keep our faith stronger, right? In the time of difficulties, especially. What will help us? The prayers will help us to do that. So I think it would be a key takeaway from today's surah that we have to be steadfast in our prayers, and then and we should feel that when we are praying, we are talking to God. We are talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. So we are, whatever fears, whatever worries we have, we are submitting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our prayers.
yeah,
And that will help us to go through those difficult times as well, inshallah. And you did you
inshallah.
mention that Kawthar means the river in paradise? Did you mention that?
Yeah,
Did I
so Kawthar in this surah refers to like abundance, as in the size of the ummah in the future, or how far the religion of Islam will grow, like to the extent at which it will grow, and also the river in paradise, where is essentially described as it's something drinkable. They refer to it as a liquid. It's a blessing, so it's a liquid that's whiter than milk and sweeter than honey, and yeah, there's basically a well with all of it, and
uh,
Muslims will be
drinking on the day of judgment, right? And there
yes,
is a hadith, there is a Sahih hadith, a group of people will be yani coming towards that river or that spring or whatever you name it, right? And where Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was himself would be giving that drink to his believers. And then a certain group of people will come, and then angels will take those people back. They will drag them back. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say that why you are taking them away? They are my ummah, right? uh, and then the
yeah,
angels will tell him, you don't know, they have innovated new things in the religion, so they are not your ummah. So again, it's a lesson for us that if we want to remain
yeah,
in the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have to stick to the sunnah actions only,
yeah,
so that we can take that drink from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that day.
yes,
Miss, the surah also has like very amazing linguistic miracles, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, like there are only 10 words in the entire surah, and in every ayah there are 10 letters.